Hi, boys and girls. This is lesson 2 on printing. It's just a very quick mini lesson. I'm going to show you the different names of the lines we use when we write with the Foundations writing paper. Okay, so this lesson's called Terms, which means words, for Foundations printing paper. Okay, this is for children or their parents. Okay. So this is what the Foundations paper looks like. Notice there are different pictures that correspond with the lines. Okay, there are actually names that I'll be using throughout the printing and the handwriting videos that I will refer to these terms or these names of each of the lines. So it's important that you know them before we begin our printing video lessons. Okay, the top line here, this is where the uppercase or the capital letters touch. Okay, the tallest lowercase letters might also reach this line. And just like the sun is high up in the sky, notice the picture of, let me get a little closer, the sun and the clouds. That's because this top line is called the skyline. Say it with me, the skyline. Good. And this line is where your tall lowercase and again your uppercase or capital letters will touch. The next line is actually on most writing paper. Even if you're not using Foundations paper, the best primary paper will have the top skyline. They will still have this middle dotted or dashed line. Okay, if you're using the Foundations paper at home, we call this the plain line. That's why there's a picture of an airplane. Okay, so this middle dotted or dashed line is known with Foundations as the plain line. So if I say plain line, it's that middle dashed line. Okay, some of the writing paper you might be using at home has a dotted line instead. That's okay too. Okay, as long as if it's a primary, if your child is in the primary age, like kindergarten, first, maybe even second grade, and they're struggling with printing or they're just learning how to print and the correct letter formation, you want to make sure that they have paper with a top and bottom line known as the skyline, and the bottom line, which we're going to talk about next. Notice the flower and grass. This is the grass line. So you want to make sure whatever paper you're using, even if it's not Foundations and it doesn't have these little handy dandy pictures, you want to make sure it has good spacing between the top skyline and the bottom grass line. And you want to make sure that there's a dotted or dashed line in the middle. If you have a beginning early writer at home or a child who's even like second, third, fourth grade or older who's still struggling with proper letter formation. Okay, it's important that they start with the 3 lines. Okay, the solid line at the top, which is the skyline, the dotted or dashed middle line, which is the plain line. Good, I hope you're paying attention. And then the bottom line, which Foundations calls the grass line. Okay, so this is typically the bottom line on most primary age handwriting or printing paper. Okay, and notice that's why there's a grass and a flower, because when we think of the ground, we think of the bottom. Okay, that's the grass line. Now, some letters actually dip down below the grass line. Okay, a lot of paper does not have, most of the writing paper actually does not have this extra line, but Foundations does, which is kind of cool. And it's important when you're learning how to form letters properly to know that this invisible or imaginary line will be there. It's not going to be there on any other paper, only this special paper. But you have to just sort of pretend like this invisible line's here if you have regular handwriting paper or with regular lines, kind of like the lines here. Okay, most primary age printing paper will have the solid top line, which is the skyline in Foundations, the dotted middle line, and then the bottom grass line. Okay, notice that most any of the primary age paper will not have this invisible line. Okay, but Foundations calls this very low under the ground line? The worm line. If you look closely, you can see a little picture of a worm with his glasses on. Okay? Some, but not many, letters actually will dip down under the grass line and actually touch the worm line. Okay, these would be lowercase letters like the letter G. Pencil's not working very well. Notice the hook on the G comes down and touches the worm line. Letter P actually dips down, goes under the grass line, down to the worm line. Sorry, that was not a very great way to write the P, but my pencil was in need of a good pencil sharpening. Okay, so lowercase letters, some, such as G, P, or the letter. If you said it before I finished, kiss your brain. J, great. So G, P, J, those are just 3 examples of some of the lowercase letters that actually go under the ground, under this grass line here, and will touch the worm line. But remember, this worm line is not going to be on most paper, just the foundations paper that we're using, okay, with these pictures. So you just have to sort of use your imagination and pretend like this worm line is there if it's invisible on the paper that you're using at home. Okay, just to recap or review the names of the lines. Okay, we have the top solid line is called the skyline. The middle dotted or dashed line is the plane line. If you said airplane, that's okay too. I'll accept it. The bottom solid line is the grass line. And the line that's invisible on most papers, except for the special foundations paper, is the worm line. Great. Now I'm going to cover up these labels here. Let's see if you were listening. Name this line. If you said grass line, you are correct. Excellent. How about the top line right here? Skyline. Great. Kiss your brain. Do you remember what this line is called? It's not always on printing paper. But in foundations, we're going to use it when we learn how to write our letters. What is it called? The worm line. Excellent. Kiss your brain. Now let's see if you remember what the middle dotted or dashed line is called. In foundations, it is called the plane line. You are correct. Now, to challenge you, let's get rid of the pictures. So no word labels, no picture labels. Let's see if you remember the names of the lines. Okay, we'll start with the 3 lines that we use the most. Okay, what is the bottom line called? Not the clear under the ground line, but the bottom line on most paper. Foundations, we call it the grass line. Great. Grass line. Okay. How about the top line where our uppercase or capital letters touch and even some of our tall lowercase letters touch? What is the name of that line? Up high in the sky. Good, it's a skyline. Excellent. So we have skyline, grass line, and what about the middle dotted or dashed line? If you said plane line, you would be correct. Give yourself a high five. Okay, so we have the top skyline. The middle dashed or dotted line is the plane line. Your bottom line is the grass line. And then we have this special X extra line here that we can see on this special paper, this foundations paper, but it's invisible on most other types of paper. What is it called? Some of the letters that go under the ground, they go under the grass and they touch it. What is that called? If you're stuck and you can't remember, I'll give you a hint. There is a slimy creature that likes to live here under the ground. So under the grass, what might you find deep down in the wet dirt or soil? Worm. This is the worm line, okay? We can see the worm line when we use our special foundations paper to help us write the letters. But on most paper, you would just have a space here, like a regular blank space, like this. There wouldn't be this line and just be a space, okay? But in foundations, we need to know that we have a worm line, and some of the lowercase letters actually drop down under the grass, and they reach that worm line, like the letters up here, G, P, and J. Okay, so in foundations, you now know the names of all the lines. Line, grass line, and the worm line, which is invisible on most papers but not on foundations. Okay, so there you have all of the names of the lines on our foundations printing paper, and you're ready to begin practicing how to correctly form and print your letters. As always, thank you for watching, and I hope you found this helpful. Bye.